Dealing with disappointment. Now, this card, which I wrote earlier this week, had a interesting origin story in that I felt this type of disappointment. I was upset with a couple of key relationships, and it felt like the kind of feeling that was going to last the rest of my life when I'm having it. Of course, I knew that moods don't last, but this is the way it felt when I was in the feeling. It turned out to last maybe an hour because I worked through it by writing this card. And then in writing the card, I was following the practices recommended in the card, and then some almost miraculous seeming chain of three synchronicities unfolded within a 5 minute period of very positive things. Anyway, but many people feel disappointment, and it really is a lifetime like feeling for them. Um, but I think some of the same strategies will still work if you deal with disappointment more than I do. Optimism is needed to keep us viable, but let's face it, life is often disappointing. Circumstances are often difficult. Hardships and privations are real. Health fluctuates. Others often disappoint our hopes and expectations. Our species is in trouble. Aging can reduce horizons of possibility, and any of us could keep populating this list with classic life disappointments. I have a fiery energy and tend toward optimism and enthusiasm for going forward, but disappointment predominates on the day I'm composing this card. In a message to a friend, I wrote that morning, I wish life was more symbiotic, but at the moment, it feels more like a series of shady business deals, and I'm not a very good businessman. My creative career has operated at a six-figure loss. I will persevere with it, but the energy return, I really should have said the green energy return, is slight. My relationship pattern is meeting others more than halfway and then meeting less than halfway, and that pattern is sadly consistent. The only answer is to lower my expectations of others, be more conservative with my energy and resources, and persevere for its own sake and for those, however few, who can benefit. I'm usually more of an optimist, but life is confronting me with sad realism. The idea of this oracle and most of my work is that it be equipment for living. So how does acknowledging life disappointment provide that? By being authentic with what I'm feeling presently, I want you to feel that you are not alone if you struggle with disappointment. My acknowledging that life disappoints everyone at times, by acknowledging that life disappoints everyone at times, we can avoid misinterpreting it as our personal failure. If we're going to grade our life performance, which I'm not recommending, we'd have to do that on a curve. If life disappointment indicated failure, we'd have to fail the whole class. And at that point, grading becomes meaningless. And I should have said, occasional life disappointment, I guess. Life presents us with many dark elements, and sometimes feeling disappointed is an authentic response to the world. Part of the equipment for living here is to not add to those feelings toxic elements that can turn disappointment into depression or despair. So do not conflate disappointment with personal failure. That's one of the toxic elements to not add to it. Another lethally toxic element that should not be added to disappointment is quitting. Quitting can range from suicide to withdraw from any activities that provide meaning and or practical benefits. That would be like me stopping to create content. Um, it would be a reduction of meaning. That would be quitting. I wouldn't do that. Um, it'd be very bad if I did, though. Perseverance is considered a supreme virtue in the I Ching, and I think it's the central virtue shared throughout the plant and animal kingdoms. Whether you are a bird, a tree, or a person, you need the ability to persevere through difficult, disappointing, and dangerous circumstances. Disappointment is a present tense feeling, not a prophecy. I feel disappointed now, but I don't know what's coming 5 minutes from now. Life is an up and down, and that turned out to be so prophetic. And it was actually in a 5 minute period that suddenly there were huge unexpected changes that drastically affected my mood of disappointment. Life is an up and down process and cannot be fully predicted. On a given day, I might have 5 disappointing things happen in a row, and then unexpectedly, something awesome happens as the sixth event. And see the epilogue of this card in the minutes after writing the body of the card. 3 super positive and unexpected events happen within 5 minutes of each other. Do not think of present feelings of disappointment as prophetic, lest you create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't have to be a Pollyanna either. Just accept that the future is unknown and current feelings are not relatable predictors. Acknowledge what you're feeling now, but keep a neutral and open attitude about what's coming. Use disappointment to make any needed course corrections. For example, some of my disappointment is because I meet people more than halfway, which increases the likelihood that they'll meet less than halfway. I can correct that pattern by meeting others halfway, but not more than that. This course correction does not mean I will solve all life disappointments, but it means using relevant parts of disappointments as valuable feedback. If I'm creating patterns that usually lead to disappointment, I can work on changing those patterns. Don't let disappointment control you. Disappointment is a feeling, and it is not good to be ruled by feelings. Moods are like weather. Unless catastrophic, they are merely in the background of the activities of my daily life. I focus on taking actions that fulfill my life mission, like writing this card, and avoid self-medication and other actions whose only value is short-term mood repair. Taking actions consistent with my life mission, regardless of moods, including disappointment, is my form of self-medication, and I found it to be quite effective. Being driven by a mood only gives it power. Focus on life-affirming actions, and better moods and motivation often follow. So, I will acknowledge the mood if necessary, like I did writing this card. I will probe into it, but I also get on with it and get on with the life mission. And then as I'm focusing on doing those actions, those meaningful actions, in this case it was while writing the card, the disappointment was going down because I was creating equipment for living out of the mood. Withdraw energy from people and activities that consistently disappoint and use that energy towards something more meaningful and life-affirming. Above all, persevere in the face of disappointment. Don't fall asleep in the snow. Get up, take useful actions, and contribute to life. The Brad Pitt character tells this family that's holed up in their apartment out of fear of the zombies out on the street in World War Z, you got to keep moving. Movement is life. Epilogue. Within 5 minutes of concluding the above writing, 3 unexpectedly positive events happened in rapid succession. Nothing is as great an antidote to disappointment for me as someone reporting value in reading what I consider my greatest work, Parallel Journeys. Again, read it free on the website, or if you want a physical book or Audible, you can get those on Amazon. See the links in the card. The cascade of positive events began with a message from a Facebook friend who uses this oracle and whom I've never met in person. And just to explain why that is such an antidote, it took me 45 years from intention to finishing the book in May of 2023. But I sort of got to the finish line, and there's no cheering crowds. There's maybe like a guy across the street walking his dog, looking at his phone, like, no, almost nobody is noticing, and that can create a feeling of disappointment. But when somebody actually does read it and sends, you know, positive feedback or leaves a review on Amazon, it's a huge antidote to that disappointment, because at least I'm reaching some people. So this is the so at the end, right after like finishing, like within seconds really of finishing writing the body of the card, I get this message from a Facebook friend, somebody I've never met in real life but who follows my writing. Hey dude, just wanted to say that I am loving this book even more. This book is doing an incredible job. He had sent some earlier comment about how much he loved the first part of it. This book is doing an incredible job of bringing high strangeness with a rational framework. Usually writers work exclusively on one side of the spectrum, but you're really nailing it. I'll probably buy the book for my wife when I'm done listening to it. Unquote. He was listening to the Audible version. So that just gave me a huge dose of optimism, and it countered any lingering disappointment. And then my webmaster, Tanner Derry, sent me diagnostics. This is like 2 or 3 minutes after that message. I'm getting messaged by my webmaster about a surge of traffic and people signing up for Oracle memberships and my newsletter 2 days before. When I looked into the data, I saw there were referrals from a high-profile person who I was sure had canceled me a few years ago. He quoted from the Zaporacle in his very popular newsletter, praised this website, and suggested, Zaporacle.com, suggested people sign up for my newsletter. Immediately after discovering this great news, the significant other who had most directly led to the mood of disappointment sent a 7-minute reparative voice message that began by addressing and correcting the thing that had most triggered me. So this extraordinary constellation of positive events is not meant to imply that moods of disappointment will always conclude with unexpected positive occurrences. But if you look at what just happened to me, I was precisely following the advice I gave in the card by writing this card. Instead of succumbing to the funk or taking a drink or drinking a sugary $6 coffee from Starbucks, I created equipment for living out of that mood of disappointment. I persevered and used the disappointment to create new equipment for living for myself and others. The 3 positive events that followed feel like the cosmos generating 3 like emojis to strategies I just outlined for dealing with disappointment. So if life is disappointing you, do not feel alone. It happens to everybody, but just persevere and get up and start taking meaningful, life-affirming actions regardless of the feeling. You don't know what's coming, and that disappointment may turn around at any point.